Hello, welcome to today's webinar. I'm so glad you're here. In this training, I want to teach you how to diagnose, clean up, and maintain your Razor's Edge database. But it's actually a little bit more than that. This training is about you, how you do your job, your department's fundraising success, and frankly, your sanity. So we are just going to jump right in. Today, I want to share with you how I've helped more than 500 nonprofits clean up their fundraising databases and keep them clean. Now, I hope right now you are visualizing your dreamy, clean database and how your work life would look so different than what it is today. But guess what? It's not as complicated as you think. In every job I had as a fundraiser or a database administrator, the database was a complete mess. I used to feel absolutely overwhelmed by where to start, what to tackle next, and how to create big change in my department. It took me years to figure out the steps and then the order needed to fix it. And I'm not talking about a band-aid fix, fixing a little thing here and there. We're talking about fixing it the right way and keeping it clean. But first, a disclaimer. Our results are really dependent on your willingness to roll up your sleeves and get to work. There are some people who attend trainings like this and never take any action on what they learn, and therefore they get zero results. I mean, some people are talkers and just not doers. Your results will vary and depend upon many factors, including your experience, your work ethic, how you communicate and collaborate with others, and many other attributes. No one else is going to clean up your database. If they could have, they already would have. These attributes are about you, not anyone else. And throughout this process, you will need to communicate, to collaborate, be open to learning a new way to do things, and more. And these are your key ingredients for success. You don't have to live in a dirty database. This is a quick and dirty list of what my Databasey colleagues and I hear on a daily basis from our clients all over the country. That they've inherited a database full of illogical codes that nobody knows what they mean, that the database isn't trusted, which means that mailing lists aren't trusted and reporting isn't trusted, or that the team just won't even use the database in the first place. Like they're running their own analytics, they're keeping side saddled spreadsheets, all of the things that are my worst nightmare. And it can deter from fundraising. If you can't mine the database for prospects, it's really hard for your fundraisers to find new people to pursue. So these are just some of the situations that we hear about every day, and some of the frustrations that I know you're probably living with because you're here in this masterclass right now. But by the end of this course, you will be able to know exactly what needs to be cleaned up, how to articulate the state of the database to the team, how to clean the database up, how to engage the team in the entire decision-making process, and then how to keep your clean database intact after you've cleaned it up. The time for dirty data in the nonprofit sector is over. I'm doing this because I am on a mission. I get calls every single day from clients that just cannot stand another day in their dirty databases. I've seen database admins quit their jobs because the thought of pulling a report like a capital campaign report is just too stressful. It's a systemic, rampant issue in our sector that needs to be corrected. And I've tried all kinds of things over the years to combat the data issues in our sector. I've written white papers. I've been featured in articles. I've presented at N10, AFP, and AHP. I've conducted masterclasses for donor search subscribers, been featured on podcasts. I crunch and author the Association of Healthcare Philanthropies report on giving each year. And all of these things I do to try to combat this systemic issue of dirty data in our sector, but it's not enough. This is my mission: to help 1,000 nonprofits clean up their databases in the next 12 months. I know that when you have a clean database and that your database is a trusted destination for everyone in your department, you will raise more money for your organization. So my question to you is, would you like to be one of these 1,000 nonprofits? If so, the next hour we spend together is going to be the most important hour you've spent on your database in a long time. I promise you that this masterclass is different from anything you've seen before. And there's really two reasons why I'm doing this. The first is to advance our sector. Our sector, the nonprofit sector, is charged with solving many of our societal challenges. We feed the hungry, we take care of the sick, educate our youth, shelter animals, and work on the environment, and so much more. If having a clean database will help you raise more money and trim expenses, you'll have more resources and time to devote to solving whatever problem your nonprofit works on. The second reason is that, frankly, I just want you to be successful. Many times clients come to me when it's too late and they're just at wit's end. They just can't manage their database anymore. And the thought of walking in the door to that dirty database is just too much, and they're about to leave their jobs. And another challenge we have here in the nonprofit sector is holding on to good talent. It is proven that the longer fundraisers and operations staff stay in their job, the bigger impact they can have on the organization. So I want you to be happy in your job, and I want you to stay in your job, and I want you to have a database that works for you, not against you. And this, frankly, this is my purpose in life. So when we're talking about a clean database, I'm not talking about cleaning up little things here and there, putting band-aids in certain areas. I'm talking about shining a light in all of the deep, dark corners of your database and actually fixing the problems. No band-aids, no shortcuts. This is a roll up your sleeve and clean up that database. And I'm talking about being able to easily pull reports that are correct the first time, like you not having to massage it in Excel. I'm going to say something radical: full report automation. I've said it out loud. These are the things that come with a clean database. I'm talking about your database being the trusted destination for your entire department, the hub of information, the book of record for your department. Prospect research can occur, grants are being tracked, solicitors are entering quality contacts in a systemic way, and the data comes out of the system. It's accurate and easy to pull. And I want you to have all those things. One of the most precious assets that nonprofits have is the data that is sitting in their databases. The years of giving history that will tell the story of how your donors engage and shape your philanthropic landscape. So I'm going to teach you my 5 powerful steps to assess your database, clean it up, and then maintain it. But before we get started, just a couple ground rules. You cannot be successful if you don't follow these. And the first one is the biggest. There are no excuses. I know your database is a mess because you're here today. We don't need to dwell on how bad the database is. I don't want to hear how you just don't have the time to clean it up, or you don't know how to tackle it, or how nobody cares about the database, or nobody trusts the database. All of these things will be fixed when you fix your database. And so there's no excuses. This is what needs to happen to move your organization forward. The second is, this is going to be some work. There is no magic bullet to getting this accomplished. There's no workarounds to treat the symptoms. If you're going to do this, you've got to do it right. What I can help you with is working smartly and logically with a manageable plan. But this is a journey, and the payoff is absolutely incredible. So stick with me. The third is truth and collaboration. We have to be truthful and honest with everything that's wrong in the database and why it is the way it is. There's no blame, but only when we know the why can we, 1, fix it, And two, make sure that it doesn't get to where it is today ever again. We have to be solutions oriented. Additionally, this is going to take the village. The database isn't one person's sandbox and he or she sets all the rules. Everybody in the department that needs the database should have access to it and all of the functionality they need to do their jobs. No decision should be made about the database by one person. And this is sometimes hard for people to swallow, but if you want the database to be a destination or the book of record for your entire shop, then you need to engage the entire shop in the cleanup and the setup. And I'm going to teach you very specific ways to plug them in at the right time for the right topics. So if you can't handle these 3 ground rules, then you should just minimize this window and leave the masterclass right now. I started my fundraising career at a children's museum in my hometown of Dayton, Ohio. I began in the marketing department, but I would see these fundraisers bring in checks, and then something very tangible would happen. The roof stopped leaking, a planetarium was built, new exhibits were brought in. I was absolutely fascinated with the development department because of the immediate impact they made on the museum was just incredible. As soon as a position opened in development, I applied and got the job. I started as an annual giving manager and database admin. It was really this job that taught me how important good data and sound operations are to the entire development department. I went on to do major gifts for large hospital systems and advocacy organizations. But as time went on, I continued to be frustrated with databases at every shop I worked at. I couldn't get reports. I couldn't run lists. I couldn't produce metrics for my team. I mean, the list goes on and on. You know what I'm talking about. So I started my own company called Databasey. And with Databasey, clients don't need an expensive consulting contract anymore. We will teach you how to shape up every element of your fundraising database. So let's start with that database. This is our clean database blueprint. This is the exact process we follow with our clients to get them from where they are today to a perfectly pristine, clean database that just is humming. Now, you've already recognized your departmental needs, right? You know it's dirty, you're here today. What I really want to focus on today is diagnosing your database, writing database standards, building the plan, cleaning the database up, and then engaging in maintenance and upkeep. So it's really the 5 icons here in the middle and toward the top. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on today. So the first is to diagnose your database. You can't clean up your database in a streamlined, efficient way if you don't know what's going on. The trick is to work in a specific way so that you can save yourself a ton of time and frustration and headache. So by diagnosing your database, you're going to know exactly what is going on so that you can build a manageable, doable cleanup plan. Now, this is where most people fail. They don't fully diagnose, and then they don't have a plan. And then they kind of like flail about and clean up, just little things here and there, but it's never really as tidy as they want it. So you cannot skip steps. Diagnostics is critical. Now, the way to diagnose is to build a scorecard in Word or Excel. And I want you to list every single field and module in the first row, or I'm sorry, the first column. Then you're going to ask yourself, what is the current state of this particular field or module? And I want you to write down everything that's wrong with that field. In the third column, ask yourself what needs to happen to get this field where it needs to be. Okay, so let's just look at the example here on the screen. So the title or the prefix. So we know this in Razor's Edge is Title 1 and Title 2 in Database View, and in NXT, I believe it is still title or name formats, I think it might be. So what is the current state of this field? So this, and I just kind of made this up, but there could be duplicate choices in the dropdowns. There could be inconsistent use of periods. And you see the doctor with and without the period. Like, you would want to list everything that's wrong with this particular field. And then exactly what needs to happen to shape it up. For example, update the drop-down choices so you don't have any duplicates anymore. Update all your addressees and salutations. And you want to go through this exercise for all of your fields and all of your modules. Now, as you're building your scorecard, you really want to group your fields and modules into these big categories. So the first is overall database health. So this would be duplicate records. This would be looking at your code tables, your business rules, just overall database health to make sure, or really to gauge what's happening in the database. The second is constituent management and tracking. So this would include all of the fields around how you are managing and tracking constituents. So we're talking titles and prefixes, constituent attributes, constituent codes, addressees and salutations, all of the things that have to do with the people and or organizations in your database. The third is gift entry and pledge management. So all of your gift fields: campaign, fund, appeal, package, gift subtype, gift code, acknowledgements, letters, pledge reminders, pledge schedules, anything and everything that has to do with how you enter gifts and how you manage pledges. And then the last is database utilization. So are you using all of the modules that you're paying for? It's really surprising to me that we'll do diagnostics for clients, and they're paying for all these extra modules that they don't even use. So are you using all of the modules, and are you using them in the right way? So these 4 categories, this is the most logical way to think about your database and tackle the cleanup. So every piece of cleanup you do is also going to fit into one of these 4 categories. And so this is important when you're diagnosing to use these 4 categories. These 4 categories are going to come up in a later step. Now, if you're not convinced that the first step is to diagnose your database, let's talk about the benefits. First, you're going to have a document that contains everything you're doing well and everything that's not going so well in the database. Having this holistic view is critical. This is also going to help you interpret the data and find areas of cleanup that can go together. So, for example, when we diagnose databases, we like to look at duplicate constituents, but also records that have no giving history. Oftentimes, we can just archive and export the records with no giving history, and then that's going to dramatically cut down the number of duplicate constituents we clean up. So there are things you can do, or well, really the diagnostics are going to help you save a ton of time in the long run. Lastly, this is going to help you articulate the state of the database to your colleagues and your leadership. You might think, well, my leadership really doesn't care about this. Here's the thing, they should, and it's your job to help them understand and care about the database. After you diagnose, invite the appropriate people to a 1-hour meeting to go through the results. Not only does this help your peers understand the database, it will help you rally for resources you need to clean it up. And this could be, it could be time, it could be budgetary resources, just anything you needed to clean up your database. Now, when you present your scorecard, you don't want to go line by line, like, oh, this is what's happening with our titles, and this is what's happening with our suffixes. Like, everybody in the room will completely glaze over. It's way too much detail. But what I recommend is presenting, I'm going to go back one slide, is presenting at the section level with our overarching themes. So you can send the document to everyone before the meeting, but during the meeting, present at this level. So you might say something like, our overall database health is in great shape. We have minimal duplicates, our code tables are in great shape, and our business rules are intact. However, where we struggle is with database utilization and constituent management and tracking. We have too many constituent codes on records. We are not using all of the modules that we're paying for, and we're putting data in multiple different fields, and they're not the right fields. Like, that's a much better explanation than saying, here's what's happening with our prefixes. Like that's just not going to fly. Lastly, by presenting this scorecard, you're taking a proactive stance on a problem that probably affects your entire department. People want to know, and people will want to engage, and that's a good thing, because number 2 is to write database standards. Now, this is a powerful, engaging exercise for any and all users. This is the team's chance to create a shared understanding of the database and build out what it should look like. Database standards ensure that data is entered in consistent ways. The team knows how to use the database. And frankly, it's like the holy grail when it comes to, like, I'm doing air quotes, this is how we use our database. But this is also about buy-in. And you need the team's buy-in so they actually follow the standards once they're built. So let's look at some examples of some standards. Only donors, prospects, event attendees, and trustees will have records in the database. So this is really a standard about who gets a record. I mean, is your database the phone book? Or is your database chock full of people who know you and love you and support your organization? So this is the type of standard that would be written, and then the group can react to it. So let's look at a couple more. Every constituent record will have a constituent code. This code will be assigned when the record is created and updated appropriately, right? Makes sense. Now, some standards, you might think, oh, we don't need to write this down. This is common sense. Oh no, my friend. Even if you think it's common sense, you would be surprised. So make sure to write down every potential standard you can think of. The next one is quality contacts. So these would be your actions. Quality contacts that fundraisers, grant writers make with donors and prospects will be entered into the database within 2 weeks of completion. Now, that's pretty kind. I mean, I have some clients that say within 24 hours of completion. These are the decisions that you want to make with the team. And then lastly, this one's kind of a no-brainer. Every gift will have a campaign, fund, and appeal code. So this is what I'm talking about with standards. These 4 will just kind of give you an idea, but essentially what you're saying is, this is how we're going to use our iteration of Razor's Edge. And here's how you go about writing standards. The first step is to have a very small group. It could be 1 person, it could be 4 people, depending on the size of your department. Sit down and write the standards. Now, when we write standards, they're probably like a solid 10 pages of single-spaced standards, like bulleted lists. Now, this group, it's very important not to get married to any standards that are written from this small group, because what you're doing is you're writing something for the larger group to react to. So once you have written the initial standards and you're not married to any of it, then you schedule 2 90-minute sessions with the larger team. And you go through the standards one by one. Now, we're looking for verbal confirmation here. So if you say, quality contacts will be entered into the database within 2 weeks of completion, This is when your fundraisers who are in the room have the opportunity to say, we actually don't need 2 weeks. We need 2 days. And this is where you can update the standards in real time. I usually have it like projected on a screen and, literally typing in as we go through line by line. This takes 2 90-minute sessions because a lot of people can love standards. It'll be a very joyful process. However, sitting down for 3 solid hours is just too much for a lot of people. So I have found over many years of doing this that 2 90-minute sessions are just better. Because once you get into like halfway through hour number 2 and people, they glaze over, it's just, they're tired. It's just, it's a lot. It's really a lot. So that's why we do the 2 90-minute sessions. Then in those sessions, like I said, line by line, and you want verbal confirmation that everyone agrees. Now, there might be times in this meeting, in either one of these meetings, where there's contention. And my advice to you is, I've seen a lot of innovation bubble up from conflict. And so it's okay that people have different ideas about how to do things. Everybody should have the right to speak their truth in this meeting. And you never know what kind of cool idea somebody is sitting on that you just had no idea that this was a way to do things. So really create the time and space for people to verbally agree or disagree with the standards that you write. And then the final step is to just finalize the standard. So once you've gone through those 2 meetings, you've talked through every standard, that small group who wrote the initial standards should probably come back together and finalize the standards. And then those would be placed implemented throughout the department. Now, here are just some of the categories that we build standards for. Now, within each of these categories, there's typically between 10 and 20 unique standards inside each of these categories. So, for example, solicit codes. So I once cleaned up a database where this gentleman, bless his heart, he was a major gift officer, and there was a solicit code for do not contact. Now, he was making calls, right? He was doing major gift calls, qualification calls, and trying to get meetings. And if he would reach someone and kind of have like not a great experience, like they would say, I don't want to meet or anything, he would add a solicit code of do not contact to that record. Now, if you probably have fallen out of your chair, but what that did, as you know, is pulled those constituents completely out. Any mailings, any phone banking, any solicitations. Just full stop, because he just didn't understand. He was thinking that solicit code of do not contact, that was a note to him, like, oh, I shouldn't contact this person again. He didn't realize that what those solicit codes did. So ever since then, I have put a very specific standard in all of the standards that I write, which is any permanent solicit code that has to deal with the donor's communication preferences will be initiated by the donor, not the staff. So that's just an example of a potential solicit code and a story just to say not everybody understands every field. And so this is another reason why to go through with the whole team, because if we would have went through, that gentleman would have understood what solicit codes were, and he probably wouldn't have coded, the 300 people as do not contact. So here's about half of the categories that we write standards for. So one quick thing that is very important, and now is the right time, is when you're writing standards, stop taking advice about database health from peers who are also living in terribly dirty databases. So when you take their advice, you'll continue to live in a dirty database. that might even be worse than what it was before. Of course, their intentions are good, but they don't know your data, your department, your reporting, and what you need. You might have the same database, right? Like you're both using Razor's Edge, but I guarantee that you use it in very different ways. And really the same goes from database companies. They built the product, but they give you like a very canned cookie cutter advice on how to use it. Standards are about you and your team building your database. So this is the chance to make all the powerful decisions that need to be made together. Okay, third step is build your plan. So when you're equipped with your diagnostics, so you know everything that's wrong, you have your standards, which essentially is a document that says what your perfect database should look like. You have everything you need to build your cleanup plan. You know what's going well, you know what's not going well, and you know what your database should look like. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's probably going to take at least 3 months to completely clean and update your database so it meets all of your new standards. But with your diagnostics and your standards, you're going to be able to break things down into these 4 categories. So these have now resurfaced. They're that important. This will drive your plan. So this is an example of what your plan could look like. So you can see, just starting on the left-hand side, you want to sit down and write out everything that needs to happen over the next several weeks, months, probably. It's going to be a long list. That is okay. We start with a grid like this and map everything out. If someone's taking a vacation, make sure to note it. If a big fundraising event is coming up and the team's going to be out of pocket for 2 weeks, make sure to note it on the plan. So you can see on the left, you have what week things should happen. So in this example, in week 1, we're going to focus on overall database health. And what needs to be cleaned up is, dupes, fund cleanup, and empty records, right? Like $0, like donors, or I'm sorry, records with no gifts. And you can see on the right, then I put who is managing this and what needs to happen. So for A, on the duplicate constituents, I just wrote, some initials. These 3 people are each going to clean up 80. And, use your team. It really does take a village to clean up. If you have 5,000 duplicate records, take 6 months and ask your colleagues to do 5 a day. And over those 6 months, you can accomplish a lot. But just know you have a team and you can utilize that team. So on the fund cleanup, then you can see that this particular person is going to meet with finance to coordinate the funds. And then the second person is going to go in and clean up the database. So you can see what we're doing here. We're mapping out in these 4 areas what needs to happen in which weeks, and then the exact area of cleanup, and then the exact plan. So for weeks 2 through 5, we're going to work on constituent management and tracking. And you see that one of the team members is going to be out during week 3. So here is solicitor relationships. So this is one of the big areas that needs to be cleaned up during these weeks. This person is going to pull the list of all relationships. The MGO team has agreed to review the list and mark it up. And then that person will then make the global changes in the database. So it's really, this is really about block and tackle. If it's going to take you 6 months, that's okay. Build your grid out for, 26 weeks. And go by area. And I would recommend that you go in this order. Clean up the overarching, the big, the duplicates, the erroneous codes like living in tables, all these things. Then move into your constituents, then move into your gifts, and then lastly, go through all of the different modules that you're using. Now, once you have that you've planned the work, all you need to do is work the plan. Now, when you and your partners, finish a section, make sure to celebrate. Announce it at a staff meeting, have a virtual happy hour, go out to lunch, just do something to celebrate all your hard work. Because when you're in the slog of like cleaning up your database, it's really critical to celebrate the wins. It keeps people going. It's just a reason to celebrate. It's something happy. Highly recommend that you do that. You're also going to have some hard days. There's going to be days when you think, I can't do this, or this isn't happening quickly enough. I know this is a lot of work, but remember why you're doing it. Remember the illogical codes. Remember that nobody trusts the database and that you can't reconcile with finance, and all of the reasons why you went out and sought out this webinar. All of the frustration. This should help you just stay on track. Now, our last step is keeping it clean. So the last thing you want to do is have done all this work to clean up your database, and then in 4 months, it's a mess again. So I like to break down maintenance into monthly, quarterly, annual, and then like before big mailings. That way it just doesn't get unruly again. And I've listed some examples here, but these should really mirror your standards. In fact, in most standards, we put a whole section about what is the monthly maintenance, what is the quarterly maintenance. And so you can list all that out. So on your monthly, I would triage your dupes. When we see duplicate records get out of control, it's a big project to like get those back under control. So I like to look at it monthly. It's way easier to, manage 7 duplicate records than 700. Now, quarterly, I would urge you to review all open pledges. So is the pledge collectible? Does it need to be written off? Does a new pledge form need to be, or a new schedule need to be established? And really look at your solicitor relationships. This is another area where a lot of databases get out of control, is just having all kinds of old solicitor relationships. And then it's really hard to work in your work center and NXT, and it just gets unruly. Now, on an annual basis, I would urge you to update all of your board and your committees, and then review your funds with finance. Now, here is a standard for you. All of your funds in Razor's Edge should exactly echo the funds that are in finance. That's like an exercise in being kind to your future self when you're trying to reconcile. And then the other is really before big mailings or big events, run your address finder. I know in NXT, when you set up address finder through NXT, it just runs quarterly. It's kind of behind the scenes. But, try to time it. And if you're not doing it automatically, just make sure you're running it at least quarterly. And then review all of your addressees and salutations. You can run a query for, people who are passed away, and you can make sure that someone's not going to get mail to a loved one that's not here with us anymore, which is really the worst thing ever. So the maintenance is critical, and it just keeps things tidy. The last thing you want is to spend 6 months cleaning up your database for it to be, just to go south after 3 months after you finish this huge project. So the maintenance is critical. So now you know why it's absolutely critical to diagnose your database into the 4 categories, and to just articulate the state of the database to your colleagues and to leadership. You now know how standards can engage the team and how important it is to state how your organization will utilize your database. Like, this is how we do things. How to build your plan so that it's manageable and doable. The best, most methodical way to clean up your database, and why monthly, quarterly, annual maintenance is so important for keeping that database clean. I'm hoping that you are my next success story and that you join the Databasey movement of 1,000 nonprofits that clean up their databases in the next 12 months. And here's the thing, I want to help you with this. I've already written a database diagnostic scorecard specifically for Razor's Edge. It has all of the fields and modules. It has our best practice for every single field. And it has companion instructions on how to pull the data and interpret your diagnostic scorecard. And this is a little mini masterclass within our membership. It's 4 videos, and of course, you'll get your database diagnostic scorecard. I've also already written all of the database standards for you, every field, module, and use case, so that you can hit the ground running to engage the team. Also, a complete cleanup plan that has step-by-step instructions on when to engage which members of the team, and then talking points for your staff meetings so that you can keep people up to date as you're cleaning up the database. And then this is the biggest and best thing, which is access to our most popular masterclass, which is the Clean Database Project. This is built specifically for Razor's Edge users. And it's a 10 module masterclass that teaches you how to clean up your entire database. And so you see me and my team, we actually clean up an entire database over these 10 modules, and we filmed it and we talk you through how to do it. And of course, you get access to our private Facebook group so you can connect with your peers and see where they are on their journey. And then we have also already built all of your monthly, quarterly, and annual maintenance queries. So we have, I think it's 6 pages of awesome, where it will find any and every anomaly in your database to keep that database clean. And so we've done a lot of this work for you, and we have helped over 500 organizations clean up and keep their databases clean. But I will tell you, this offer is not for everybody. You have to be serious about cleaning up your database and actually fixing all of the problems. You must be willing to engage the team and the users of the database. And you also have to commit the time to clean up. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be this amazing query wizard who, can build these crazy complex queries. We will teach you how to do all of the work. You just have to give us the time. Now, if you were going to buy all of those things from Databasey, one-off from the website, it would cost over $7,000. And if you chose a consultant to do all of these things for you, those services could cost over $15,000. But remember, I'm on a mission to get 1,000 nonprofits to clean up their databases. And so I'd like to offer all of these courses to you for $1,497. You will get diagnostics, pre-written standards, your cleanup plan. You'll get access to the 10 module masterclass and all of our data integrity queries. But there's more, because I want you to be happy in your job and to have all of the things. So when you join Databasey, not only do we help you clean up your Razor's Edge database with standards and diagnostics, but we have all kinds of other courses that will help you be successful. So courses like the Stewardship Project, the Fundraising Insights Academy, the Fundraising Operations Roadmap. And then you get access, of course, to all of our policies and procedures completely included in your membership. So your success is our priority. You're the one that's out in the country doing amazing work. And we want you to be able to use your database to raise more money. We know that when you raise more money, you make a bigger impact in the world. And so your success is our success. So life can stay the same. You can have, the inherited illogical codes, and the team dynamic is breaking down because nobody can find prospects and they don't believe in the reporting or that the mailing lists are correct. Or life will never be the same. You can have automated, beautiful reports with a database that is the trusted book of record for your fundraising department. So I want to leave you with two quick questions. If it's not you, then who? Who is going to clean up this database for you? It's not easy work. It's a big project, but we can help you in so many ways to do the right thing at the right time in the right order to actually get it done. And if it's not now, then when is it going to be? Are you going to live in this database for, another 24 or 36 months of frustration? Or is it going to become too much and, you just want to look for another job because you can't live with this dirty database anymore? So these are important questions to ponder. But what I do know is that this is your chance and your time to make amazing changes for your organization. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And as always, let us know if you need any help with your database.